Section 12 of Romances of Old Japan. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Romances of Old Japan by Yei Theodora Ozaki. Loyal Even Unto Death, Part 2. Scene: a village school kept by Takebe Genzo and his wife Tonami, both devoted vassals of the exiled Prime Minister Michizane Sugawara. Among Takebe's pupils is the young Sugawara. This boy they disguise and pass off as their own child. The little lord, though only 8 years of age, excels in everything among the pupils, and, inheriting the ability from his father, writes Chinese hieroglyphics with great skill. The senior pupil is a lazy, stupid, and incorrigibly mischievous fellow, 15 years of age, who will not study at all. While our teacher is out, it is a great waste of time to practice writing. Look, I have done all my writing on my head. And the lazy boy came forward and showed his schoolfellows a shaved pate all blackened with Indian ink. The little Sugawara looked at him and said, "If you learn one new character every day, you will acquire 365 characters in a year. Instead of wasting your time playing like that, you must study." But the older boy only laughed at him and left his desk to prance about the room. The other boys took the part of little Sugawara and, growing disgusted with the idle boy, wanted to punish him. There arose a great clamor in the schoolroom, all the boys shouting together and leaving their places to attack him. Disturbed by the noise, the schoolmaster's wife came out from the inner room. "What is the matter? Are you quarreling again?" "Today the master is away. He has been invited by a friend, and I do not know when he will come back. As we are expecting a new pupil today, I am anxious for his return. Now if you are good boys and will work hard this morning, I will give all of you a half holiday this afternoon." The boys were delighted with this promise. All promptly returned to their seats, and opening their books and their inkstands, became diligently absorbed in their tasks of reading and writing. Just then a sound at the porch made Tonami draw aside the screens. A gentle and aristocratic-looking woman was standing there with a pretty boy of about 8 years of age by her side. A manservant carrying a desk was in attendance. After an exchange of civilities, the visitor explained, "Our home is at the other end of the village. The reason for my visit is to ask you to take this naughty boy into your care, as arranged the other day. I am told that you have a child of your own about his age. I should like to see him." Tonami beckoned to the little Sugawara. "Why, certainly. This is our son and heir. Oh, what a nice little fellow, and how clever he looks." Then looking round the schoolroom, she added, "How busy you must be with such a number of scholars in your care. They must be a great trouble and responsibility." "Yes, you may imagine it is no easy work to look after them all. Is this the boy you wish us to take charge of? What is his name?" "His name is Kotaro," answered the mother. "What an intelligent-looking child!" exclaimed Tonami. "Unfortunately, my husband has been obliged to keep an appointment with some friends. But if you are in a hurry and cannot wait, I will go and fetch him." "No, no," protested Matsuo's wife. "As I have an errand elsewhere, I will call in on my way back. He may have returned by then." Then, calling her servant, she ordered him to bring in the presents she had brought, one for the master, and some cakes to distribute amongst the schoolboys. In a few graceful words, the gratified hostess acknowledged her visitor's kind thought. "Oh, it is nothing, only a little token of thanks from my heart for all the trouble my boy is going to give you." Then turning to Kotaro, she added, "I am going to the next village, so you must wait for me here like a good child. Don't forget all I have told you." "Oh, mother, I want to come with you," Kotaro suddenly cried, catching her by the sleeve as she was stepping into the porch. "Now, do not be naughty," remonstrated his mother. "A big boy like you ought not to run after your mother. Look, Tonami-san, what a baby he is still." Oh, it is quite natural, poor little fellow. Look here, Kotaro. Come with me and I will give you something nice." Then turning to O Chiyo, she added, "Try to come back as soon as possible." Yes, I will come back at once, if you are a good boy, Kotaro." Seizing the opportunity, she slipped out through the porch gate, followed by her servant, who closed it after her, and the two briskly clattered away on their clogs. The poor mother yearned to turn back once more, for she knew that she would never see her little son again in this world, but she kept bravely on her way. While Tonami was trying to console Kotaro and to distract his attention by introducing him to the little Sugawara, her husband returned. His face was pale, and he was evidently profoundly agitated. As he entered the schoolroom he sharply scrutinized each of the boys in turn. His wife saw at a glance that something unusual must have occurred. "Oh, what common fellows they are," he muttered crossly. "Such country-bred louts can never serve my purpose, however great the trouble I take with their education." And he gloomily regarded them with knitted brows, as though something was weighing heavily on his mind. His wife approached him and anxiously inquired, "What is the matter? You seem unusually worried today. You knew from the first that those village lads can never become intellectual. People will not think well of you if you speak against your own scholars in this way. Besides, we have another pupil today. Please try to recover your good temper and look at the new boy." With these words she brought forward Kotaro, but Takebe had become absorbed in his own preoccupation and took no notice of the child. Kotaro came forward, bowed respectfully and said, "Please, sir, I look to you to teach me from now." At these words, spoken in a clear sweet treble, Takebe started from his reverie and fixed his eyes upon the newcomer. By degrees his face gradually brightened as though struck by a new train of thought. "What a handsome and dignified boy! You might easily pass for the son of a nobleman or any other exalted personage. Well, you are a fine fellow." "He is indeed," responded Tonami with a smile. "I thought you would be glad to see such a promising pupil." Yes," assented the master. "Nothing could be better," he muttered in an undertone, as if speaking to himself. Then aloud, "Where is the mother who brought him here?" "As you were not at home, she went to the next village on an errand," replied his wife. "That is capital," said Takebe, growing more and more pleased. "Send this child with our boy to an inner room, and let them play together." "Now," said Tonami, turning to the class of schoolboys, who had been more assiduous than ever since their master's return, "all of you may have a holiday. Run away and play in the garden." After sending her two special charges into the next room, and looking around with suspicious eyes that no eavesdropper was lingering behind, she lowered her voice and half whispered to her husband, "When you came in you looked so harassed and troubled, but since you have seen that boy, your demeanour has suddenly undergone a complete change. What can be the reason for this? Something unexpected must have happened. Won't you let me share the secret?" "It is quite natural that I should have been so perplexed and dumbfounded," answered Takebe. "To deceive me, they pretended to be giving a feast, and invited me to the residence of the village mayor, but when I arrived I soon found the feast was all a myth, and the house was in the occupation of Shundo Gemba, vassal of Tokihira, and another man, Matsuo by name, who is under great obligations of gratitude to the ex-prime minister, but who has deserted the house of Sugawara, and now shamefully serves the enemy, Tokihira. It seems as though he must have been appointed to examine the head of our young lord, for it has leaked out that he is here under our guardianship, and Tokihira has ordered him to be beheaded. These two men, with some 100 followers, surrounded me in a hostile manner with this threat: we have received information that you are secreting the only son of the ex-prime minister in your house, disguised as your own child. Unless you kill him at once and bring his head to us, we will attack you and slay him ourselves." As no alternative was left me, I was compelled to pretend to assent to their proposal. I thought that amongst our pupils, surely there would be one sufficiently like to be sacrificed in his stead, but when I came home and was confronted by all that row of plebeian faces, it was an obvious fact that not a single one would answer the purpose. All those young boors are of a common and vulgar type, and as unlike as possible to the aristocratic face and noble bearing of our palace-reared boy. Despair seized me, but when I saw the new pupil, it seemed as if he had been specially sent by Providence as a substitute. The difference between them is not so great as that between a crow and a white heron. If I can deceive them but for a short time with that boy's head, I intend to escape to Kawachi with a young prince." His wife broke in. "But that man Matsuo has known Kanshusai intimately since he was 3 years old. How could he be deceived?" "There lies the difficulty," said Genzo. "But after death, faces always change to some extent, and as Kotaro unmistakably bears some resemblance to our young master, even Matsuo may be deceived. At any rate, we will risk it. In the event that the ruse is discovered, I am determined to kill Matsuo at once, and try to cut my way through the guards as best I can, but if they are too strong for me, I will die with the young prince. Such is my decision. But the chief anxiety at present is concerning the mother of that boy. If she should come back before this can be achieved, what course of action can we decide on?" "Leave her to me. I will try to throw dust in her eyes," suggested Tonami. No, that won't do. A great plan often fails through some small mistake." Then, after a moment's reflection, he added, "Oh, well, I suppose she must die too." "What?" cried his wife in alarm. "Be quiet," admonished her husband. "For the young lord's sake, we must stop at nothing. It is for our master's sake, remember that." Yes. If we are weak, we shall fail in our great scheme. Let us become devils. There is not much difference between pupils and one's own children. That boy became our pupil at this critical moment. Heaven must have delivered him into our hands as the result of his mother's sin in a former existence. Oh, well, the same fate may overtake us before long." At this point their pent-up feelings gave way, and both of them shed tears. Shortly afterwards, Gemba and Matsuo arrived at the gate. They were closely followed by a number of villagers, the parents of the common pupils in the school. In great excitement, one and all were loudly clamoring for the safety of their own children. Matsuo almost laughed. The situation was one of such grim comedy. Each peasant evidently thought his own son might easily pass for the young aristocrat. "Oh, mine is a beautiful boy," shouted one man. "You mustn't make any mistake between my son and the real victim. Give me my boy." He turned fiercely to Gemba. "You need have no apprehension whatever regarding your children," said Gemba, calmly addressing the alarmed parents, who now squatted on the ground with their heads bowed in the dust. "If you want them, you are at liberty to take them away at once." Matsuo, who was in a kago, here stepped out. Footnote: Kago, a palanquin. Here stepped out, using his long sword as a stick to lean upon. Both he and Gemba sat on stools, which their attendants placed ready. "Just wait a little," said he. "We cannot be too careful even with these villagers. The reason why I accepted the office of examiner is because there is no one else who knows the young prince's head as well as I do. These people allowed the young Sugawara to live in this village, so very likely they may have sympathy with the ex-prime minister, and may claim his son now, pretending that he is one of their own family and so aid him to escape. Who knows?" Then, turning to the agitated peasants, he said to them: "Now, my men, you may call out your children's names one by one. I will examine each face carefully. Your own boys shall be safely restored to you, rest assured of that." The schoolmaster and his wife from the house overheard all that was going on, and Matsuo's determined and arrogant demeanour only served to intensify their fears. It was going to be even more difficult than they had apprehended. An elderly man came forward and in a loud voice called out, "Chomatsu! Chomatsu!" In answer, an ill-favoured, pock-marked boy ran out, his face covered with smudges of Indian ink. Matsuo glanced at him. "The difference is as great as between snow and charcoal. He may go." In turn, all the rest of the pupils were searchingly inspected, but not one bore the slightest resemblance to the ill-fated Kanshusai. When the pacified villagers had carried away all their offspring in triumph, Gemba and Matsuo entered the schoolmaster's house. "Genzo," began Gemba in tones of authority, "you promised to behead the young Sugawara. I will receive that head now." Without betraying the least sign of feeling, Genzo replied: "Yes, but he is the son of the ex-prime minister. We cannot slaughter him like a common boy. Please wait for a short time." "Oh, you cannot deceive us," said Matsuo quickly. "Dallying in this way is merely pretext for gaining time, but it is useless for you to attempt to disappear now. The rear of the house is guarded by some 100 men, and there is no room even for an ant to escape. You may produce a substitute head, with the explanation that a dead and a living face have a different appearance. I shall not be taken in by a subterfuge. Such tricks on your part will only lead to repentance." This last thrust hit Genzo hard, but he did not lose his self-possession, and answered Matsuo quietly: "What a far-fetched idea! Your eyes, after your long illness, may not be able to see things clearly, but I will surely give you the head of the young lord you demand." "Before your tongue is dry," exclaimed Gemba, impatiently, "behead him at once." "It shall be done," replied Takebe, and went into an inner room. His wife, who had listened to all that transpired, was in an agony of anxiety, pale and trembling. Matsuo, with sharp eyes, was looking round the room. "It is rather mysterious," he said suddenly. 8 pupils have gone home, and yet there are 9 desks. What has become of the owner of that extra desk?" Tonami started. She began to explain that there was a new pupil. Matsuo saw her vacillation. In an undertone he said: "What a fool you are! Keep quiet!" Then, realizing how fatal such a mistake would be, Tonami collected herself and managed to stammer out: "That is the young Sugawara's desk." But her confusion had been noticed by the enemy. Gemba started to his feet and shouted in furious tones: "This trifling will cause the frustration of our plans." At that moment the sound of a sword broke the silence as it fell swishing through the air. The screens of the room shook, and before Matsuo and Gemba could reach the partition which separated the inner from the outer room, Takebe appeared, carrying a white wooden tray. A cover hid what was beneath, but a thin trail of crimson blood was ominously oozing from the edge. Kneeling on the mats before the 2 men, he placed his ghastly burden before them. "There was no alternative, so I was forced to behead the young lord. May heaven forgive me, as it is a matter of such importance that there should be no mistake. Please examine it carefully." With these words, Takebe's hand stealthily fell upon his sword hilt. Every fibre was on the alert to cut down Matsuo the moment he realized the deception that had been practiced on him. "I will certainly do so," replied Matsuo, nonchalantly. Then, addressing some of the soldiers who had followed him into the room, he peremptorily gave them the command, " Now surround the Takebe couple." From the rear of the house several guards entered and took up their posts at the porch and just behind Genzo and his wife. The strain was almost too great for the poor woman, and she was well nigh fainting with the sickening uncertainty of what might be the last act of that dreadful drama. Gemba, looking on, took note keenly of the proceedings. Everything hung on Matsuo's decision. The suspense of the moment was agonizing in its intensity. He slowly lifted the blood-rimmed cover from the wooden tray. A boy's decapitated head was exposed to view. It was the head of little Kotaro. Takebe's eyes were riveted on Matsuo. Defiantly he swore that Matsuo should draw his last breath the moment he declared the head to be a subterfuge. As a tiger ready to spring on its prey, the desperate man watched the judge on whose next word hung all their lives. Tonami was praying to the gods in silent fervour that the truth might not be discovered. Tremblingly she clutched a short sword hidden beneath her robe, which her husband had surreptitiously handed her in preparation for the worst. End of section 12. Recording by Maricel Cui.